Today's Yorkshire Leader is the founder of a well-established media planning and buying agency in Harrogate. She's worked with some of the UK's best-known brands, and now with her business Alchemy Media, specialises in giving clients the gold standard of media planning and buying. Today's guest helps clients get their brands seen and noticed on TV, cinema, social media and radio, and she's here ready to tell us her story. So listeners, please welcome Bridget Moore. Hi there, Bridget. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Rachel. Thank you for inviting me on.
It's a pleasure. I'm so pleased you're here today, and it's so nice to have a fellow marketer on board as well, because we haven't interviewed a marketeer yet.
Right.
So
okay.
I'm really looking forward to
I'm sure
our
we'll have
conversation.
plenty to chat about.
I'm sure we will. And I'm very pleased to see the good branding behind you as well. For those that are watching on YouTube, they'll be appreciating that.
Excellent.
So Bridget, do you want to tell us a little bit first about Alchemy Media, how that story all happened and how it's going?
So the business has been going nearly 18 years now, which is quite a long time, I guess, in our industry. We're never very good at looking backwards, are we? We're always kind of looking ahead. But yeah, 18 years is going to be something to celebrate. It kind of all started, I've worked at various advertising agencies and latterly a global media agency network, part of Omnicom, for sort of the last few years of my career, mainly in Yorkshire, but obviously quite a lot of travel with all of that. And I think just sort of got to the point where working in a big corporate environment and having a family in Yorkshire, a lot of things became a little bit incompatible. Also had become a little bit disillusioned with the over commoditization in the media industry. And it's obviously brilliant if you're a client who's got tens of millions of pounds to spend and you're a global brand or one of the biggest advertisers, in the UK or whatever. Being in that network agency environment is a great place to be. But for smaller brands and for challenger brands in particular, I don't think that's a great environment where that kind of model can really help challengers to stand out. Yeah, it started, I guess, on a bit of a whim, really, like a lot of things, and with a view that if we didn't get it right and we didn't make it work, that we would have to go out and get a job after a couple of years. But here we are. So, yeah.
18 years later, that is to be congratulated, because
Yeah.
you will have seen, weathered some serious storms within that time.
Yeah, there's been a lot of highs and a lot of lows, and
exactly.
as you say, a lot of storms to weather. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, I guess, is the old adage.
So true. And Bridget, what do you think have kind of been the biggest changes that you've seen within the media? Because obviously, I'm looking at media all the time. I do a lot of Facebook and Instagram advertising. Obviously it's changed and it's continuing to develop, isn't it, so much for clients. So it's really difficult as a client to know where to start at the moment because there's so much going on.
Yeah, there is. And I think that has been obviously one of the big changes over the last sort of couple of decades even, is just the proliferation of choice that we have as consumers and as guardians of brands as to how to find and reach and influence people using all of the options available. And I think, an interesting thing for a lot of our clients is media can be one of the biggest expenditure lines on their kind of P&L, often in an organisation outside of, products and materials and staff overheads. Marketing and then the media line on marketing is really huge. But it's not the most exciting part for a lot of people, and it's really complex and it's really complicated, and everybody's got an opinion on it based on their own individual habits and biases and thinking what they think is normal. And
So
there is kind of no such thing as normal, and we as marketeers are not normal. So you have to put aside your own biases and think about who is it we're trying to influence, where do they hang out, what kinds of things really do influence them. And there's so many things, and there's no right or wrong answers in all of this. It's just kind of taking the data and the science, and I guess that's kind of where our brand name Alchemy came from. There's the data and the science side of it, but you have to light a bit of a spark of magic dust. It needs to sit alongside that, and that bit of creativity to make what you're doing stand out. And I think that's really important, particularly for challenger brands where you can't outspend the competition. You've got to find ways of kind of doing things differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, when it becomes such a crowded space as well, so whether it's TV or cinema or, social media or radio, there's so much going on, and we're all, as consumers, just bombarded, aren't we, with messaging?
Yeah.
And so it's like you say, it's finding the creative spark to stand out amongst all that. So you're paying good money for the space, but there's no point in having great space if you're not challenging those people to come up with an emotional reaction to the creative.
It's really important that we consider how we're going to use media and what media we're going to use alongside the creative route. And obviously, we are a specialist media agency. We don't create any content, but we do work alongside a lot of creative agencies and we collaborate with a lot of people. So often, we get our business through clients who come to us direct, but also a lot of, because we do one thing and it's very specialist, and not a lot of people do it in the way that we do it without offering all sorts of other services as well. We're kind of quite easy to play with for other agencies who really value kind of our insight and what we can add to the creative process, so that we can all make sure that the creative content and the media sit really well together and are going to amplify each other. And I think that's something which, that can get a little bit lost if those things are done in silos.
And also, like you say, there's a lot of agencies out there saying that they do everything, and that doesn't help the client sometimes, because like you say, what you do is so specialized. You need to know the best possible value for the client. You need to know what you can do with their budget, where the best places to target are.
Yeah, and there is overlap on some stuff that we do, particularly in digital. So we've got clients who will use a digital only agency. We've got digital agencies who use us for offline media. We've got clients that that we share and collaborate with. But I think that because we look at traditional and digital media, we can have quite an informed view on how to carve up budgets across those channels, because it doesn't matter to us. It's about doing the right thing. We'll look at what's the right balance here and how do we make one amplify the other.
Yeah, the ecosystem of brands, because people are on Netflix 1 minute, which is now advertising, isn't it? And then on TV the next minute, and then on the next minute they're looking at Instagram. So it's like an ecosystem.
But how do you balance the demands and the costs and the impact and influence of all of those channels? And like I say, there's no right or wrong answers to these things. There's just trying to come up with a really sensible, well thought through plan with also that little bit of creativity in it that's going to help to make it stand out.
Clients can really benefit from an agency that doesn't overpromise. To say that Alchemy is really specialised in what you do in media planning and media buying. We have a lot of listeners who aren't necessarily in marketing. Can you just kind of break down what media planning and buying is?
Yeah, there's obviously, hundreds of different media touch points that we all access throughout the day, and access them in different ways and kind of different mindsets and modes as to how we're consuming stuff, whether that's stuff that we're looking at kind of through work and in a busy mindset, or scrolling through mindlessly on Instagram or social media looking at what our friends are doing, through to going to the cinema and sitting in front of a huge screen as a captive kind of audience. And in each of those media types has different attributes in how it reaches, how many people it reaches, and the impact and influence that it can have. So the starting point for any job that we have with any of our clients is, what is it that you're selling and who is most likely to buy it? And getting that audience bit right is kind of really important. And often clients will come to us and say, right, well, our target audience for this product is 25 to 34-year-old men. And we'll do quite a lot of research, and we'll look at what the competition are doing. We'll look at what motivates different people who are buying that category. And we might go back and we'll say, we know that people who are buying your product at the moment are 25 to 34-year-old men, because you're telling us that's what they are. But actually, there's a big opportunity here to open it up and go after a bit of a different audience, because nobody's really serving that audience, and your brand sits really well with them. So the starting point is like, who is it that we want to talk to? And once we've agreed that, it's, well, how do those people consume media? And that is different for every kind of demographic group. What are they using in what combination? How much money has the client got to spend plays a massively important factor, and who they're competing with. Because often, like I say, we work for a lot of challenger brands, so we're often competing with people who are spending 10, 15, 20 times more than our client. Whereabouts are we selling? Is there any geographical areas where we know there's more kind of low-hanging fruit in terms of potential to get some sales? Because that's ultimately kind of what it's about, to put more money in the bank, to keep on doing it, to keep on rolling it on. So how do those people consume media? And then how do we come up with a plan that sits really well alongside the creative and makes best use of the budget? Because we tend to work with sort of smaller budgets compared to some of the huge brands out there. Getting really good value for the media investment is really important, and we've worked hard over a lot of years to build really strong, supportive and collaborative relationships with all the media owners. And I think there's also a bit of a myth with the big global agency networks buying media at cheaper commoditized prices. That's not always the case. Or it might be that they are for their biggest clients, but some of smaller clients get shoehorned into things that maybe not be quite right because they're trying to meet up an inventory deal, or we get a lot of favours done by media owners. They can be more flexible with us as a smaller, more agile independent. We can often take advantage of opportunities in the market. So we'll go out to market once we've kind of agreed, like I say, audience plan, who we're talking to, what kind of media types do we want to use. We'll then go out and we'll speak to all the media suppliers that we think are kind of relevant, and we'll get them to pitch for the money. And we'll look at what added value they can give us. What incentives are you going to provide? So we'll negotiate on discount, on added value, we'll use whatever tools we've got in our toolbox to try and get the best value that we can, so we can buy the most eyeballs in the right places of the right sorts of people for our clients. So once we've done all that, media schedule, media plan, get that signed off, and then it's about making sure that when a media plan is running, if it's on TV, we're in exactly the right airtime spots that we want to be in, hitting the right people. We're really managing that process. The online inventory, if we've got digital stuff on there, what's performing well, what's not performing, what can we move around, what can we optimize, and we'll keep an eye on all the analytics side of things whilst a campaign is live, then report back to the client, and when a campaign's finished, what did we do, what happened. And again, probably at the start of the process for clients, we'll agree, what are we trying to achieve here and how can we measure it, whether that is hard measures in terms of sales or softer brand metric measures. So do a brand awareness dip on what is our awareness and propensity to purchase and all those kind of softer measures around the brand. And are we moving that dial over time, and just try sort of on an ongoing basis, keep trying to unpick that, and what we're doing well, what we're doing, what can we improve on, where can we test and learn, are we growing here? Can we spend a bit more money and hopefully build brands? That's exactly. Kind of what we do, and we do that in all sorts of sectors. So we've got quite a lot of FMCG brands, but we do retail, health and safety, leisure, house builders, cars, care homes, all sorts of different sectors. But the principles for it kind of are all the same, I guess.
I always think, having done B2B and B2C, you can learn from both.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's really important. I think that's really, really important point to make.
Especially now, because we're all, like you said earlier, we're all consumers, so we're all seeing.
We are.
Messages from massive brands, messages from smaller brands, and it's
and that's an interesting conversation that we do have with some of our B2B clients, is to say, the people that you are trying to target are also people. They go home at night and they turn on their TV. They might have different interests and watch different programs based on kind of, their own nuances as an audience, but we can find them in different ways.
That's one thing I saw on the website, actually, about the TV advertising, and that there are things that you can do as a smaller brand, that might be more targeted towards your particular customer.
Now, with the video on demand, broadcast video on demand, some of the products from Sky, like Sky AdSmart, we're consuming our TV content in different ways, and there are some great ways of targeting for smaller advertisers now. So, you can down to postcode level or matching in data sets from Nectar card data or Boots card data, that kind of thing. So we can try to make sure our advertising is getting in front of the right sorts of people. It might be that, for example, Sky AdSmart products, if we're advertising for dog food, we can build an audience within Sky of people who own a dog. So you might own a dog, your next door neighbour might have a baby in nappies. You might see a dog food ad, and in the same ad break at the same time they're getting served an ad for nappies, because you are different to your next door neighbour. And your habits are different, and with that data exists, so we can find ways of doing that to make sure that advertising is hitting the right people in the right place.
And it's so much better, isn't it, as an offering for consumers, because you're seeing relevant data instead of relevant ads instead of totally irrelevant ads, which can be annoying.
Yeah, and then you can also kind of build out how you serve advertising based on, if we know that you have seen an ad, you've been exposed to an ad on TV, and then you've got your iPad next to you and you start browsing, serve you another ad because through your iPad, because we think that you've been exposed to the TV ad. So that second opportunity to see will help you to cement that memory of that brand message.
Well, just on that, how many, because I often have this conversation with clients, obviously we all know we're bombarded, but how many messages do we need to see sometimes before we take an action? Because I know at one point it was 7, then I heard 18, and then I feel like it's just going up depending on...
I think it varies really for all sorts of different reasons. I mean, on average, I would say, ideally you want people to see the advertising sort of 4 to 6 times, but there's the sort of old comment about one opportunity to see close to the point of purchase is more effective in the short term than multiple distance from purchased, particularly for FMCG markets. But then for other brands, you kind of build your brand preference over time. So, things like cars or high ticket items, we've all got things in our brains which give us those preferences to particular brands, which are not kind of rational. They're emotional things that we've built up over a long period, even though we're way out of, you could be a teenage boy dreaming about driving an Aston Martin. Can't do anything about it for a long time, but that might stay in your mind for 10, 20, 30 years.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I used to work in PR in London, and we did quite a lot of FMCG brands, and I remember Persil coming along, I think, some research coming out about how people, this is so random, but how people choose washing powder. And it was all to do with what their mums used.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was it. There was no rationality. It was like totally emotional. This is what got used at home. This is what I'm going to use now. End of.
I've just had the conversation with one of my daughters about switching her bank account to a student account. And she's like, I'm with the same bank. Why are they giving me 100 quid to stick with them? And it's like, because they know that once they've got you, you will probably stick with your bank for 20 years because it becomes complicated to change. So that 100 quid might get them a mortgage sale, it'll get them a loan sale when you're looking to buy a car, when you're looking to do all of these things, insurance products and whatever, because you've got that relationship with them and they can sell you more things.
So what did your daughter say to that? Because that's
she's
serious insight from mum.
She's like, I'll take the 100 quid, it'll pay for me a couple of nights out at uni.
I love that. I'm sure we could geek out about marketing for an hour.
Yeah, I'm sure.
and more. But I'd love to get into a bit more about how you lead with Alchemy and your leadership. And what would you say that you've learned? We talked about challenges earlier. What have you learned while you've been leading at Alchemy Media?
I think just that, we've all got different strengths and different weaknesses. And I think just working with the people around you to uncover what it is that they're brilliant at that you're not, and what you're brilliant at that they're not, and make sure that everybody's playing to their strengths, really. And that collaboration, support, enabling, sharing is really, really important. Something which you might find really easy, therefore you don't value it because it's just what you know. You think it kind of has no value because you know it, but that's really valuable to somebody else, and something which they know, which you don't, you can really benefit from. And I think that just sort of open, engaging, talking about stuff, sharing, trying to help, collaborating, I think is kind of really, really important. And, doing that alongside a set of shared values, I think.
And tell us about the values thing, because I'm really into this, not just from a marketing point of view, but from a...
Yeah, I did kind of scribble down our values. So yeah, we spent a lot of time, particularly when we came back after COVID, where we'd gone from everybody being together, all week, 5 days a week in the office, everyone's together, your culture builds from the people around you, and it's a really easy thing to have. When you all get separated from each other, it becomes something that you have to work out a little bit harder. So when we came back after COVID, we spent quite a long time going, okay, we kind of did lose a little bit of that here along the way. Because you've been separated from people, you just lose a little bit of that connection where you're talking about, what did the kids do last night? What did you do at the weekend? Because everything became a little bit kind of fraught and you were separated from each other. So we kind of went back to basics a little bit and did a piece of work around our kind of culture and our values. And we rewrote all our job descriptions and created a competency grid that was very much aligned to our values and articulated those a little bit better. So they are honesty and integrity, doing the right thing, even when it's difficult, because often the right thing can sometimes be the hard thing. So, if that is a heartfelt thing, you're going to come across and behave with integrity, and that's kind of really important to us. Courage is another one of our values, so to be brave and to try new things. You learn a lot from kind of doing that. It's easy to do the easy and the obvious things, but sometimes the magic happens when you are a little bit braver.
You mentioned testing and learning as well, and that's part of the process, isn't it? It's, failing a bit as well.
Yeah,
being allowed
you learn a lot in those dark moments when you have got something wrong, but then that can often lead you to something better a bit further down the line. Or if you might do something great, but you would never have known if you hadn't had the bravery to try it. Being invested and building partnerships that are rewarding and enriching for everyone. So being in it together and that kind of collaborative thing, I think, is important to us. And nurturing, so supporting and encouraging and inspiring each other to be our best.
If you've articulated those values, then your clients can, if you can match yourself with clients that actually have those values too, then it makes the working life a lot easier and project work a lot easier.
Yeah, it does. And I think that has helped us, like you say, with clients. I mean, we're fortunate. We've got an absolutely brilliant set of clients who we get on really well with. We work really well together in those sorts of ways. That sort of, collaborative working is a really important part of what we do. But there have been times when we've parted company from clients because we've found that we don't share the same values, and that's really demotivating for everybody, because if you're not feeling fulfilled or valued for the work that you're doing, it's pretty miserable, really. But if you can surround yourself with like-minded people, and often what we do is it's tough, and there's a lot of deadlines and quite a lot of stress and whatever. You don't mind doing it if you're all feeling it together, and you'll go the extra mile for people, and they'll go the extra mile for you. But if you don't share those values, it's much harder to do that, because you start to get a little bit resentful about it. There's been times when we have had to say goodbye to clients if we think that we're not aligned here. Sometimes that can be scary, because it's happened once with a client that was a huge part of our business, but it had become a bit toxic, and I knew it was demotivating the team. And when you get somebody on the end of the phone who makes one of your staff cry for no reason, really, it's only work. We're not saving lives. We're all just trying to do our best. However hard it is, sometimes you've got to make those decisions for everybody's well-being. And then often you look back on it 6 months later and you're like, why did I swear over that? Because we're all in a much better place now.
So true. And what courageous leadership as well, because we've all been in those workplaces where it can become toxic, and if the leadership doesn't take the action that needs to actually happen, it can really get toxic, and then people leave, and that's not what you want either. So.
No. But we're back on a bit of a growth curve now. There's a lot more confidence in the market, so existing clients are starting to spend more. We work hard on our kind of networking relationships. We're kind of notoriously bad at doing cold new business generation, which is something that we know as a business we need to get better at. But we do win a lot of business through recommendations and referrals, and through the collaborative relationships that we have with other partner agencies in the region and further afield. When we start working with people, we'll always look for, what else can we do? Are we enjoying this relationship? Is there more that we can do together? Yeah, we've beefed the team up. We're looking for another account manager at the moment. If anybody's listening who's interested in working for Alchemy, get your CV in. I'd be glad to hear from you. Yeah, absolutely.
We'll share that. We'll definitely share that. And if you weren't doing what you do now, Bridget, was there a plan B?
No, there was never a plan B. To be honest, I left school at 16 and went to secretarial college because I'd decided I wasn't doing my A-levels and I wasn't going to university, much to the annoyance of my parents at the time. And I think while I was at college, there was a careers talk, and advertising was kind of talked about. I think I'd been told at school, in the careers talks at school, that I should go and work behind a bank counter, and I think I thought that didn't seem like what I probably wanted to spend a lifetime doing. But then when in the careers talk advertising was talked about, I thought, that sounds really interesting and fun. So I managed to get myself a job in an ad agency, initially on reception, and
that's not an easy place to get a job, because I had the same thing, but in PR agencies, and it's not easy. So I'd just like the listeners to know that you definitely fought for that place.
Yeah, I got a job through a temp agency, temping at an ad agency on reception, and they kept me on. And after about 6 weeks, they were like, "Oh, you get in the media department, and that's the far better place for you." And I was lucky that there were, some good people around me who spotted would and wouldn't be good at. So my first job was buying a lot of national press space for finance companies, actually. So I used to spend my days on the phone to London negotiating pages in the Sun for finance companies and that kind of thing. So
probably no better way to start negotiating.
No, it was brilliant.
That's a real skill in itself.
Yeah, and I knew nothing about anything, but I knew that I could do that.
And you soon learn fast, don't you, when you're just thrown in at the deep end?
Yeah, and I think I kind of learned that, just learn from the people around you, and if there are people that you admire at work, watch them, follow them, listen to them, find out what the bits that they might be getting a bit bored of, and take it off them. Take stuff off the people around you and above you that they will really value, and you will learn a lot from, and that gets you noticed, and they'll start putting more stuff on you then. So that's kind of how I grew, was I'll do that, put yourself forward.
I've got another great friend. She's in London in advertising still, but she started in the post room.
Yeah.
And so she was literally trolley and delivering posts around, and then she just got chatting, and now she's award-winning creative. She's done so well.
Yeah.
But it's I think it's one of those things that it can be a calling in some ways, to be within the creative space or to be within the media. It's it takes a certain type of strength and a certain type of person, I think, to really thrive in that area.
Yeah. I think I'm sure a lot of people would hate it because it can be kind of really quite chaotic at times, and you're always doing something different and there's different challenges, and you come to work on a Monday morning thinking, right, I know what I've got to do this week, and then 3 phone calls later it's like, oh Christ, how am I going to do all of this? And something's come in, something's come out. And I think, if you're the sort of person who does like a little bit of that and juggling a lot of different things, it can be rewarding. There's no chance to get bored, that's for sure.
No. And I think that agency space as well, there's always something new coming in. You're always learning about a new industry, a new client, target customer.
Yeah, and it's really fascinating.
Really keep you on your toes. Yeah, if you're a curious person, it's a great place to be. And when have you grown the most?
There was a time 6 years ago now when, in the space of literally 6 weeks, we lost 2 of our biggest clients. One of them was a situation that was kind of completely outside of our control, in that the client had brought in a new head of marketing who was going to always have a different agenda and want a different team there. And we have won in those situations so many times that, a contact of ours has gone into a new place and immediately brought us on board. And sometimes you lose from those situations. So, it's part of what we do. And then another client relationship, which it was for the best that ended, but that was 2 of our biggest clients in a really short space of time, and that was pretty terrifying. But as a leader, you can't show that. You have to just go, listen, this is fine, we knew that this was coming, or there were reasons for this, and we didn't want to do that anyway, and there's people out there who we'd much rather work with, so let's go find more of those people. And actually we went on to have a great year, and it was all fine. But at the time, it was it was pretty scary. But I think you do learn a lot about yourself, and you need to have resilience in those moments, and that also that a lot of the little things that you might be doing every day in terms of your networking, you're being nice to people, you're putting it out there, all of that lot, when you need the support of other people around you, it comes back, and you can sometimes free yourself up from things which have been difficult and draining and go on to do better things.
So it's like closing the door on things that aren't serving you, making space for things that are going to give back to you. And it's like the law of karma, isn't it? And are there any books that you recommend?
I've got a huge pile of books by the side of my bed that just sort of keeps on growing. One is Alchemy by Rory Sutherland. That's a great read and full of insights for anybody in our sector. He's kind of a really intelligent and engaging storyteller. And he talks about the importance of behaving in irrational ways, that we all think that we're kind of rational beings, but actually we're not. We behave in emotional ways. And I think it was David Ogilvy, Rory quotes it in his book, who said, people don't think what they feel, they don't say what they think, and they don't do what they say. We all have this kind of set of, I behave in a very rational way. We don't, and we can't explain a lot of the things that we do. And there's loads of great examples in there about how you can achieve a lot of great things by being a little bit irrational. If everybody's being rational and following the same path, everything can become a little bit safe.
When you're dealing with a crowded marketplace, if you're doing that safe thing, you're not going to be the...
You're not going to stand out. Yeah. There is another book sort of along the similar theme called Eating the Big Fish by Adam Morgan, and that again is about how challenger brands can compete against brand leaders. So particularly have you got that?
I've literally got it on the bookshelf there.
Yeah, no. Again, I've not picked it up for a while, but I do need to kind of reread that one. But I found that kind of useful, going back to some of the kind of earlier days of Alchemy, because we are a challenger brand ourselves. We compete with multinational network agencies with, huge client lists and whatever, who've got a very different and very appealing approach to a lot of clients, but they're often our competition. So when we're pitching for bits of business against somebody who can go, well, we're the biggest and we're the best and whatever, we have to find ways of standing out. And then probably the most used book on my bookshelf is Mary Berry's Ultimate Cake Cookery book, which probably tells you quite a lot about how much cooking I actually do and how much cake I eat. And I do quite like baking for family and friends and whatever. So wonderful. That's the book that I probably go to most.
That's brilliant. The thing is with Mary Berry, you just can't beat her. Straightforward, it always works. Go Mary.
Go Mary.
And if you could give your 21-year-old self some advice, or your 16-year-old self even, what would you say to her?
Just always put yourself forward and try the hard things. I know there's that sort of old adage about you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. What's the worst that can happen? We're not saving lives. Nobody's going to die. If you want to do something, just go out and try, and surround yourself with good people and people that you can learn from, and nothing's off the table. Just go for it. And I wasn't a confident 16 or 18-year-old, and it's easy for us to get kind of held back by our lack of confidence, but nobody's thinking about any of us, are they? Nobody cares really about any of us on an individual level. So it's only at that sort of your confidence is quite a limiting thing. So just get yourself out there and try. And if you fail, try again.
You've obviously proven that doing it and getting out there and trying over and over again is the way forward.
You can't let yourself get down by the knocks. You've got to keep on getting up and going again and going,
Yeah,
oh, okay,
absolutely.
that hurt. What did I learn from it? Right, I don't want to feel like that again.
I think the only way to keep growing as well is to just keep trying new things and
Yeah,
get out of your
and
comfort zone.
you learn what works, you learn what doesn't, you learn what works for you and what doesn't.
What healthy or unhealthy habits do you have?
I do quite a lot of exercise, despite my
Yeah.
penchant for eating too much cake. I exercise probably 4 or 5 times a week. So I've realised that, and I went through a lot of years where I didn't do that, but I've kind of realised that it's good, not just on a physical level, but on a mental level as well, to kind of do that. And I've also realised that making that something that I put in my diary and is a bit of a social thing as well is the way to make it happen. If I put it in my diary, I will do it. And usually that involves, if I've made a commitment to somebody else, to I'll see you there tomorrow, or yeah, I'll be there.
Brilliant.
And
And
making a little bit of a social thing of it
Yeah.
is good.
Absolutely, and that makes you do it, doesn't it? And like you say, once you've blocked your diary out and it's in the diary and there's someone else involved, you're going to do it. There's no
Yeah.
getting out.
Unhealthy habits, it's probably being a little bit too busy and a little bit probably slightly hyperactive at times. So I'm really not very good at switching off and taking time out to sit with my own thoughts. So that is something that I actively kind of need to work at.
And if you had just one message you could leave our listeners with, what would it be? What would be on a billboard?
I guess that sort of old mantra that success is not final and failure isn't fatal. It's not the end. Keep on going. Don't take it too seriously. Like I said before, we're often reminding ourselves here when things get a little bit too serious. Is anybody going to die? Are we saving lives? Is anyone going to die? No, right? Okay, that's good. Okay, let's get it all in context and kind of work it all out. And whatever journey you're on, it's not going to be linear. It's the courage to keep on going that kind of really matters, and just to pick yourself up, keep on
I
going,
love
and
that.
you'll kind of get there.
That's amazing, Bridget. And where can we find out more?
We have a website, which is alchemy-media.co.uk, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Bridget Moore on LinkedIn. Yeah, so if there's anybody out there who would like to chat more, whether that's from can we help you from a commercial perspective, or you're interested in careers in advertising or media, we're happy to talk. I know that as a young person starting out in my career, that I really benefited from being around other people, and this industry in particular is very kind of collaborative and creative, and but whatever industry you're in, you learn so much from other people, and if you're not with them and you're separated, it's just hard to do that. We've got nice houses and nice places to sit at home, and it is easy to sit at home and do everything from a screen because we don't need that kind of external stimulus as much. But I think about that from the perspective of my children and other young people kind of coming into the workplace, that we've got a duty to give that back. We all benefited from it, and we've got to keep lifting each other up, haven't we?